Mere conservatism.
You know, David Perry, by the way, is over there, and I'm Cleve Walker.
Hey.
We just decided that if we can, we're not really going to talk about the war in Ukraine. Although as soon as I say that, we don't know what will happen next, and that will make it once again the thing that everybody is going to increasingly just fixate on.
Because it's a big problem.
Yeah,
we all already know that. It's a problem on so many levels.
Yeah, so
and it's getting worse.
But there are problems over here, okay, on the homeland that are also just as momentous, if not more. With the exception of one thing, David, the White House recently condemned North Korea because they test launched a long-range ballistic missile this past Thursday. After, by the way, we had warned them, the Biden administration warned them about any new test, okay? North Korea back in January fired what appeared to be its most powerful missile since Biden took office. So senior officials, and this is kind of funny, I guess one of the reasons I want to bring this up with the White House, they said this is most concerning and increasingly destabilizing. And
well, you know, that strongly worded letter, I think, Cleve, ought to just clear it right up.
I mean,
North Korea does this from time to time. They don't care what anybody says. They don't care that it's destabilizing. They don't care that they get condemned by the U.S. They just want a little attention. They're hoping to get a little concession, something here or there or whatever, and they're doing it as a show for their people, I guess, to impress their dictator, and that's all it is.
Well, they did seem to begin to care under the Trump administration. Okay. Under the Trump administration, for a bit there, they stopped. They stopped making statements. They stopped doing tests. And I guess what I'm saying, to me, it's another sign of what a lot of people feel free to do under Biden that they didn't necessarily feel as free to do.
I'm going to just push back on you a little bit there and just say that North Korea is a different story. Okay, they're a different animal.
Yeah,
they did some of this under Trump. Trump handled them very strongly, and they stopped for a while.
Yeah,
and then they did it again. This is just what they do. So they stopped for a while under Biden too, and then they're doing it again. And Biden is not handling them strongly. It doesn't. I don't think it does matter in the grand scheme of things. You need to handle them strongly, but as far as what they're going to do, I don't think it matters quite as much.
I just think it's one more thing, though, again, because we got to understand North Korea doesn't do anything that China doesn't want it to do. All right. China wants North Korea to act up, they'll act up. China don't want them to act up, they will stop. If China, I think China told them at one point, okay, with Trump in here, you better hold it in check, because this is a guy here who's not somebody I think that really is good to play around with. With Biden, I think you get a blank check. All you're going to get is diplomatic doublespeak. Doesn't mean anything. So therefore, China tells North Korea, okay, all right, I'm going to cut you loose to do what you always do.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
and let's be honest, North Korea is utopia to the leftists. Think about it. I mean, they emit almost no greenhouse gases. Have you ever seen the satellite images at night of that part of the world? And North Korea is completely black. South Korea is all lit up. China is lit up in most places. Not most places, but, in their cities and stuff like that. North Korea, black.
Yeah.
So the leftists love North Korea, and we would all be North Korea if the leftists got their way. We'd be burning, we'd be powering our homes with bicycles and hamster wheels and stuff like that.
Right.
And
North Korea is not it's not a situation like in Ukraine. It's not even the situation like in Iran, I'll give you. But it's yet one more thing. Again, the whole world notices the absence of a strong America. And I think China is telling North Korea, okay, if you want to make some noise now, this is the time to do it. Because China likes the U.S. being concerned with anything but Taiwan.
And trust me, when China decides they're ready to take Taiwan, they're going to want some distractions going on in the world.
Thank you.
They did this when they decided to take Hong Kong.
Yeah.
They waited until the rest of the world was in the throes of the COVID virus, and we were all too busy trying to keep everybody from dying from
Yeah.
COVID and
Yeah.
not really even knowing what we were dealing at the time when they took over Hong Kong. We still didn't even really know what we were dealing with when it came to COVID.
That's a good point.
The whole world was panicking and like, what now? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
They marched into Hong Kong. And
So
took
you're
it over.
right. China needs a lot of noise on the world scene. They need the U.S. to be distracted with a lot of things. So I think China tells North Korea, again, if you want to make some noise now is the time, because we've got some plans and we need America once more involved with anything else but watching us. So anyway, I throw it out there. And again, to me, I got to say the destabilization right now going on in the world is the direct result of America not being strong.
It is.
And this is just one more domino to me.
Yeah, we've got a lot of problems that have been exacerbated by the presidency of Joe Biden. The spending is a problem that's leading to inflation. This war is caused in large part by Joe Biden and what he has and hasn't done. That's making things unstable all over the world, more inflation. So it's some things that are out of people's control. You know, the supply chain, originally the issue was in my brain was a COVID issue. You know, people just couldn't work and
Right.
there was an issue there. So that starts it. But then you start spending money. You start spending money at first that you needed to. And then after a while, the money that you didn't need to. So you're
Right.
printing all this money. People they've got a lot of money,
Yeah.
and then the supply chain is a problem. So you got too much money chasing too few goods. It leads to inflation.
For sure.
Then you got this war over here that is challenging oil supplies and it's challenging wheat supplies, and all these things coming together. And this does go back to Joe Biden because the war goes back to Joe
Thank
Biden
you.
and his inaction.
Thank you.
So does the spending.
If we had a strong economy like we had under Trump, and would have had again, the recovery would have not only have happened, it would have been stronger, robust, and it would have stayed. Then we're in a better position to deal with all this other junk that's going on. So you make a good point.
And right now we're in a spiral here, and
Oh, my goodness.
Cleve, we are, and I hate to say it, we're at the point where we're in a little bit of a spiral. It's not getting better.
No.
Anytime soon. In fact, it's probably going to get worse, even worse than it is now before it gets better. It's getting very expensive to live, Cleve.
Of course.
I don't know if you've ordered.
And you say that, and Biden and the liberals, progressives, want to spend more money. All right. I mean, it's like
Yes.
they want to throw
It's never
gas
enough for them.
They want to throw gas on the fire that's already taking place. So again, got to get these guys out of here. Something happened recently, though, that reminded me why those of us who love our country and love the Constitution need to not only be praying for our leaders, but we need to be praying for the Supreme Court justices who still believe in the Constitution. When Clarence Thomas got that infection that hospitalized him, it reminded me, my goodness. Now, certainly I don't want anything to happen to anybody, okay, but I certainly don't want anything to happen to any of the conservative justices, because then he not only names this gal that's going to get on there eventually, but he gets a chance to name somebody else, and that would be awful.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen, but it's very likely that it will, because a lot of the justices are elderly.
Yeah. Well, Clarence Thomas is in his 70s, but normally he's been healthy and no problems. But he showed with this latest thing that all it takes is one of those justices to have an issue and can't serve, and this guy Biden gets to name another loony. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this gal.
Cleve, first of all, I just want to say you're stumbling a little bit here, and you should, because you have really offended me.
Also,
because you're using gendered language to refer to this individual,
Ketanji Brown, by the way,
who is being
Ketanji Brown
nominated
Jackson
for the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
and some of the questioning is disturbing, and then some of it is just ridiculous.
Okay.
Or I should say her answers are ridiculous or non-answers. So when she won't define woman or can't because she's not a biologist.
I mean,
I'm not a meteorologist, Cleve, but it's kind of a nice day today.
That was shades of Kamala response.
It was bad. I mean, her responses have actually been remarkably bad.
Yes.
She sounds dumb. She really does.
But I expected her to be evasive, so I'm not. That's not a surprise. But I'm with you. Everybody was talking about how bright and intelligent and what a mind this woman has, and then she comes on and says things like this.
Well, and the reason I don't think she is stupid. I think the reason she sounds like that is because she's tiptoeing around the leftist triggers.
But you can tiptoe more intelligently than what she's doing to me.
I don't know if you can, because it's not an intelligent position that they take when it comes to gender and things like that. Now, in her discussion, when they're asking her about things, she'll use the word woman. I heard plenty of times where she used the word woman,
but she can't define it.
But she won't define it. Yeah. She can't define it because she's not a biologist, which is really stupid. I mean, if you can't do that, you are dumb.
Well, at least you could have said something to the effect, I don't want to define that word. I think for purposes of this hearing, I choose not to define that word. But again, if she did that, then she would maybe have to explain why.
She's got all kinds of problems. That's why it's a good question. Not only that, but there are, in law, a woman is not just in law, because it's a word that means something. We all know what it means. It is an adult female, okay? A woman is an adult female. This is important when it comes to interpreting all kinds of laws that are on the books.
Well, in hindsight, I think was it Cruz that asked her that question? I forget which one.
Marsha Blackburn.
That's right, a lady. Okay, but in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to put her in a corner by asking her this, Miss Brown. Of course, Judge Jackson is her name, not Brown. Brown's her middle name. But ask her this: this is Women's History Month. In light of the fact that many people now are identifying as a woman who are not biologically a woman, what does Women's History Month mean to you? Tie her up so where she has to say, because you got to say something about Women's History Month, but yet you got to then at that point at least say what you think a woman is.
Well, yes. And here's an example of why the definition of a woman matters so much to a Supreme Court nominee. Just one example. A hot button issue is abortion.
Right.
And this is, some claim, health care for women.
Right.
Women's health care. So in the context of talking about women's rights and women's health care, okay, well, define a woman, because this in this context, this is important information. We need to know what... You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Like when you're looking at a law and you're trying to interpret a law, the definition of a woman is very important. Her not being able to say what a woman is disqualifying.
It ought to be. In the real world, it would be. But what you got to understand, they already have a term to cover this disparity, because what a person who has a woman that can have a child that has a womb is not necessarily a woman per se. They are a birthing person.
Birthing person.
Yes,
I see.
That's the term used, a birthing person.
But that's not the term that you hear all the time when you hear about abortion rights activists, like women's right to choose and stuff like that. See, this is why it's nonsense. What the left has attempted to do, and they've been very successful at this, unfortunately, language means nothing.
Under their
these
philosophy.
words, and we've said, Cleve, what have I told you for years and years and years, is that words have meanings. You have to define and know what the words mean that you're using, or else there's no way to communicate or know anything.
Right.
And people on the left will blur the definition of words, and then they can say whatever they want.
Exactly.
And do whatever they want, because the words have no meaning. This is a real problem, and she shouldn't be on the Supreme Court for that alone, not to mention
100%.
The weird. Cleve, what is it with leftists and pedophiles?
Oh.
What is going on?
I can tell you what, I have a theory about that, and I wasn't going to even talk about that, but you make a good point, because they are, all of them, en masse, have offered great support, or at least by great excuse for pedophiles.
Isn't it weird?
I believe they need to do, the reason they do that is this. If you come down definitively against pedophilia as being wrong, not just a mental disease, if you come down definitively on pedophiles as being the worst kind of criminals, okay, then you paint yourself into a corner. Because at some point, and I knew this was going to happen, when you allow a person to redefine gender, when you allow a person to redefine marriage and relations between people of the same gender, when you allow that to happen, you can't then come down on those who or how did one guy put it?
Minor attracted person. You follow me? In other words, you've already moved the goalpost. And if you say, well, we can't move the goalpost any further, then you get away from the philosophy that it's all in the person's own choice as to what they want to identify as. Exactly. And so we've accepted as a society, I mean, not me and you, obviously, Cleve, but
progressives,
that it is you're denying the existence of me as a person. You're hurting me as a person when you deny that I am a woman, even though I have male body parts.
Exactly.
And you're changing I exist. You're totally doing away with my existence, and so this logic carries over to people who are MAPs, minor attracted persons.
Yes.
And, but I'm actually on the inside. I'm young,
yeah.
And I'm, we are peers. I mean, this is a woman who apparently said that an 18-year-old was a peer with an 8-year-old.
Right. Apparently, from her ruling, that's what you're saying, basically.
And look, that is horrific.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old. Any 18-year-old, any college freshman who wants to hang out with my 7-year-old, they have some sort of issue, okay? My 7-year-old doesn't need to be hanging out with college freshmen.
Yeah.
They are not peers, all right? That is nuts. You are a crazy person if you think that that's okay. And this apparently is what she's saying with one of her rulings that they highlighted during these hearings.
And yet, what you just said, in their mind, puts you in the category of being crazy, because
I'm a hater.
Yes, you're obviously a person who has a mental. You're the one with the mental issue, in that you don't want to acknowledge someone's right to say anything they want and let it be their truth, whether or not it passes objective reality or not. You and I, and not just you and I, but people on our side of the issue, we still believe in objective reality, but for them, that's a problem. Because once you start saying things like that, then you're saying there are things you cannot do and still be healthy or normal or, perish the word, right. Okay. And they're saying, no, it's open. You can be anything in the world except be a conservative Christian. That's what it comes down to, because that's where the problem starts in their mind. So anyway, this gal, Judge Jackson, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is further left than anybody else now that's already been appointed. I mean, she comes from that progressive wing that denies reality, and that's what her rulings are going to reflect. If we had one or two more people like that on the Supreme Court, kiss that court goodbye as being anything close to constitutional or moral. So that's why this is important to me. And I'm hoping Republicans will stand their ground. I don't think they're going to be able to stop her from going on. I actually, Cleve, believe it or not, when this started, I thought we had no prayer, and I actually thought we'd probably get some Republicans to vote for her. That still might happen. What changed your mind?
This line of question.
Oh, okay.
I think the pedophile thing is a real big deal.
It ought to be.
And I think the won't define woman thing has really blown up on them a little bit. And at this point, because think about it, who are the Republicans that will vote for a Democratic nominee? Almost unquestionably, Mitt Romney, probably.
Murkowski.
She's in. Is that Maine or is that Alaska?
Alaska.
Who's the lady in Maine who does the same thing?
I forgot her name.
But you know what I'm talking about. So there's a handful of Republicans that you could say they'll probably, as long as they're credentialed, these judges are going to get the Republican votes, because this is just how these people act. Mm-hmm. Now, though, I don't know that they will get Mitt Romney and Murkowski. I'm not sure that they will with the pedophile thing. It's just, I don't know if it's quite the same thing. Now, they only need one Democrat to say no. They only need one.
It's hard to believe that I've turned, during the course of this podcast over the years, that I've actually become more cynical than you used to be, because you used to be the one to me that just, you didn't really have much hope for anything. But now I'm the one, because I think that Romney, for example, has totally jumped overboard in any sense of being a reliable person or reasonable person. I think I'm not surprised at anything. And Murkowski, I feel the same way. And Cheney, it doesn't give me a whole lot of hope, but I'm hoping that she won't. Well,
she's not voting on this. She's in the House. But
here's the thing. I'm just talking about Republican politicians with that mindset. that I thought would only go so far. I think they will do anything now to appease.
You may be right.
Yeah.
You might be completely.
I'm sorry to be. If
what
I'm
I'm
right.
saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that before this hearing,
Yeah.
I thought there was no chance that we stopped the nomination.
Right.
Now, after hearing some of these questions, I think that there is a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really believe there is actually a chance that the nomination gets blocked. I don't know if it'll happen.
I'm praying you're right. Because, again, this gal is bad news. First of all, I don't think she's a very bright person. I actually think she's another Kamala. I really do. But besides that, I think her philosophy, which she wouldn't even answer the question about what her judicial philosophy was. She said, I have a methodology, but not a philosophy. Whatever that
That's
means.
a lie, first of all.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like these hearings have been a bit. She isn't saying anything.
No.
And it's clear she's not even good at dancing around the stuff.
That's my point.
She's doing a bad job of being cryptic.
Yeah.
She just sounds
It
stupid.
would be better for her to say, I don't want to answer that question, or I don't have an answer for that question, than to get the answer she's giving. But having said that, I'm going to take some encouragement for you and hope that maybe that could happen. But I think she's in there. Okay. My prayer now is that all the other people like Judge Clarence Thomas that have some sanity, that they will stay healthy, and that God will give us another chance to have somebody in the White House who will
Let me just tell you, when it comes to this vote on this nominee, if all 50 Republicans agree that they are not going to vote for her, there's a really, really good chance that a Democrat jumps the aisle, because Manchin.
I don't think Manchin's
Listen, though.
I don't think he's going to fight him on this one. That's just me.
Listen, Manchin is going to vote. Manchin does not want attention. Okay.
Sure.
So if it's an easy yes, like if all the Democrats and Mitt Romney are going to vote for her, if Manchin is not the deciding vote, he'll vote for her.
Okay.
But if he is the deciding vote, I'm telling you, Cleve, there's a chance that the West Virginia senator is going to. West Virginia is a very red state, Cleve. You got to remember this.
That I understand.
And he is thinking about getting reelected. He has to think about this stuff. If he's the deciding vote on this nominee, then there's a chance that he will shoot down the nomination. But again, that takes all 50 Republicans to agree that this is a no-go. If that happens, we have a chance.
Senator Lindsey Graham, did do something I wanted him to do, and this wouldn't necessarily mean anything in stopping her, but I felt that we could not point out again the hypocrisy of the approach to this nominee as to say to Kavanaugh or even Amy Barrett. Amy Barrett, they said some bad things about, but of course Kavanaugh they tried to destroy. And there are now Democrats accusing the Republicans of doing the same thing by daring to question this woman in the way they're doing it. And Graham just said, no, we're not going to ask you about your, teenage romance life. We're not going to ask you about, in other words, he literally used this.
She groped me at a party.
Right, to throw it in their face about what you did, the inexcusable thing that they did, that we should never, ever forget to Judge Kavanaugh. I mean, that was inexcusable, and yet they did it, and now they want to complain that they feel like the Republicans are singing out dog whistles against
Not
them.
even close.
Not
even in the same universe.
Yeah, and so I'm glad somebody's pointing that out, because that was inexcusable, and we need to stay on top of that.
They're going to wait till the very end and bust out her fourth grade yearbook, though. I just know it. What does this signature in the back mean?
And one final thing, Hunter Biden's laptop.
Oh, did you know that is actually real?
According to the New York Times, which originally denied it, yes, there's something to this.
This is a gigantic scandal.
Yeah, but the question I'm asking you is this. Why, with New York Times, and they're the ones who send the signal out to everybody else in the liberal media, why now would they bring this admission out and talk about this?
That's a really good question, Cleve.
I have a thought.
Good for you. It's been a long time for you, man. Good job. No, I don't know why they decided to come out and say it, other than they were doing a story on something really unrelated. Basically, it was about Hunter, but it wasn't really about this particular issue, and they buried it in the story. Maybe they decided it was time to come to to mention the truth so that they could say they covered it.
They definitely decided it was time. But the reason I believe they're doing it is because they've heard something that has not yet come to surface, either from the Durham investigation or some other indication that there's something getting ready to happen indictment-wise. Okay, and they want to get ahead of the curve. They don't want it to be reflected that they were one of the people that called this nonsense. All right, and actually part of Russian narrative. That's what a lot of the Democrats did. So to get out ahead of this, they're now saying they're not going to be able to say, "Yeah, we broke the story." Almost, of course, they didn't, but they're aware of something that's happening in the Justice Department, something with Durham's investigation or something, FBI even, that says they're getting ready to bust something, and we've got to get out ahead of this and not look like the lying jackals we were back when this was coming out and should have come out during the campaign.
I really hope you're right and that they do have something. I think that this admission shows us two things, and it's actually two things that we already knew.
What are they?
But it just further confirms it. The absolute corruption of the media and big tech. The second thing that it shows us is that Joe Biden is totally corrupt.
Thank you.
He is totally Joe Biden, because not only did the media and stuff rig the election and Joe Biden won, the other thing that this story shows us is that Joe Biden is the big guy getting 10%.
Right.
Because if the emails are validated, then what is Hunter talking about? It's clear that he's talking about using his family name to enrich himself and his family, and Joe Biden is part of that. Joe Biden, Cleve, this story means that he's illegitimate as a president.
Yeah.
This is still not getting the attention
No.
that it really deserves.
They got to give it some attention. I think they still protect Biden somehow through this. I think that Hunter is going to fall on the sword for Biden because they got to keep Biden in office, because then Biden turns around and he pardons his son for whatever he ends up getting.
Well, I don't know if that'll happen. I don't think his son even. I don't know if anything's ever going to happen to him, because even today, Cleve, conservative media is really the only place talking about this.
Well, we've come to the end, unfortunately. I mean, we could go further. David, as always, you got the scoop on how folks can hear this conversation again.
Yeah, check it out on Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube. Search for MereCon Media. And you can find us on Facebook as well. Just look for Mere Conservatism and our beautiful smiling faces. I use the word beautiful in air quotes.
Okay. All right. David Perry and I'm Cleve Walker, and we'll have another edition of Mere Conservatism next week. In the meantime, keep the faith. It's not over with yet.